Dr. Lou Shimura is an early adopter and innovator in orthodontics. While maintaining a private practice in Marshall, Michigan, Dr. Shimura has participated in over 10,000 hours of orthodontic education, currently about 300 hours a year, has served as an advisor to numerous companies, and is involved with developing practical courses to help orthodontists incorporate soft tissue lasers, 3D CBCT, and screening, testing, and treatment of obstructive sleep apnea in the orthodontic office. With numerous professional publications and over 100 professional presentations, Dr. Shimura is passionate about helping others see possibilities beyond their current situation. His passion for helping others led him to develop Egghead Ortho to develop complete orthodontic solutions, including airway, bite, and exceptional aesthetics, in addition to aligning teeth. Through coaching, consulting, and teaching, Egghead is helping orthodontists and dentists provide a better orthodontic outcomes that are more profitable. Dr. Lou Shimura. Welcome to Closing the Deal Dental Podcast, and I am with my friend, Dr. Lou Shimura, renowned orthodontist and highly respected in this industry. Lou, I'm so excited to not just call you my friend, but have you on here interviewing you as a doctor has sold on this series for the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great. Good to see you again.
Yes, good to see you. Good to see you. So listen, we kick this thing off each and every episode with a very specific question. Now, I know that you recently just sold a year or so ago, well, maybe 2 years ago. But I want to know, if you were to do it all over again and you had the opportunity to have a walk-on song and then go and interview with all of these buyers, what would that walk-on song be?
Kodachrome by, who is it? Kodachrome, Paul Simon. And it's really because of the first two lines. When I think back on all the crap I learned in high school, it's a wonder I can think at all. And that's sort of a story of my life. All the things that I learned and thought were true aren't true. And you just have to keep your mind open.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I'm going to ask you this question now. I haven't asked it before, and I'm curious what your response would be. So, you know, when we're selling dental practices, people have the option to go in person to a very efficient event. Some of our sellers, they do not, they say, well, man, I don't really want to get on stage in front of 10 different confidential buyers, and I don't want to walk on song. And that's totally okay. We sell practices traditionally as well, but you can go back in time and work with us to sell your practice. Would you prefer getting on stage and interviewing in front of the buyers with a walk-on song, or would you prefer the other way, which is traditional?
Now, I would much have preferred to go on stage. Yeah, in retrospect, oh my goodness, the opportunity to do that would have been just marvelous. Yeah.
Okay.
Hands down.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. And can you, for the viewers, the dentists who we're speaking to specifically are dentists that are looking to sell their practice, that are looking to get in a position to sell, or they're looking to sell now, or they're 2-3 years out prior to selling, that don't know you. I know that you are ortho famous, but the people in the GP space, and some even the specialty space that don't know you, can you give your background about, you know, yourself, and so everybody can get to know you a little bit?
Sure. So I'm old school. I graduated in '87 and moved to Virginia. I lived in Michigan, moved to Virginia, started a practice. Didn't love living there, moved back to Michigan, started a practice, and practiced there for 41 years, or 41 years. And private practice the whole time. I bought some, I started a couple, you know, but basically that's what I did. Plus, I had enough time on my hands that I could go and say, what if we did this better? What would better mean? And so it gave me a lot of free time to take CE and formulate what I call complete orthodontics, where it's not just straight teeth. Straight teeth are a side effect of fixing all the other stuff that's behind the scenes. So, and I've along the way, I got lecture opportunities, and somebody said, "Do you want to write a chapter for a book?" And I said, "Sure." But I remember going back home and telling Penny, I just said I'd write a chapter for a book. I have no idea how to write a chapter for a book. But we figured it out, and all kinds of opportunities. So I do public speaking. I write books, chapters, that is, and it's been great. Great life.
Awesome. That sounds good. And can you tell all of the listeners a little bit about your practice specifically as a whole, where it's at, the size of the practice, what the practice is all about, how many patients, that kind of thing that you're treating?
The practice I owned and have subsequently sold was in a little town of 7,000 people in the middle of Michigan. The next town bigger was 15 miles away, all low income, all rural. I knew that I couldn't do traditional ortho straight up and do the kind of practicing I wanted to do. So I was using high tech. I mean, I am as familiar with high tech approaches in ortho as pretty much anybody, really, even at this point. And we were doing that because to plan the treatment start to finish, to do proactive ortho, not reactive ortho, that wasn't being done. To have remote appointments, that wasn't being done. But by doing that, my draw was for an hour, hour and a half away. I had some patients coming further than that, but routinely an hour away, people would drive to see us because we could eliminate appointments for them. It's funny, really, in retrospect, because I hear people talking about how it's going to save appointments for the office. I'm thinking, what an opportunity missed. My God, you can market the crap out of that. You don't have to go ask for time off to come see this orthodontist versus that orthodontist. But people aren't seeing the world. My dad was the guy. He always forced me to see the world from the other side. And so I always asked that other question. What's the benefit to the patient? Huge, huge if you're doing remote monitoring. You got to have systems, but doing it is really cool.
Got it. And so what made you decide that you wanted to sell your practice in Michigan?
I didn't love managing a practice, and we'd pretty much topped out. I mean, we were we were at $1.6 million, okay, on 2 days a week. And it just wasn't going to happen that we got a whole lot more new patients. They just didn't exist. Honestly, I just got burned out from all the management part of it. I still love ortho. I still fill in as a locum tenens all over the country. I still consult and teach. I do all the stuff I love to do. I just don't have a practice to do it in. Although I've talked about it, and then I'd have to get divorced, and I'm not willing to do that. So,
Got it. So you said, you know what, I'm getting burnt out. I would rather, do this at a local tenens level. And consult. And so you said you're getting burnt out. Can you go a little bit deeper there? Because some dentists that are listening are like, oh my gosh, I'm burnt out right now. Can you give a little bit more detail around that? Like you woke up one day and said, I'm selling and burnt out. What led to that? And what would you recommend to prevent burnout from happening?
Yeah, that's a deep question. It was like the frog in the frying pan, that old story. It happened over time. I had no idea the ambient stress I felt every day. And it was largely because I wasn't living in tune with the practice. I was trying to achieve goals that someone said I should achieve. And I couldn't do it. I didn't realize until afterwards, after I was out, that, wow, this is what relaxed looks like. This is, my blood pressure dropped 50 points. Literally, Elijah, it was incredible, the differences in health afterwards. Now, I still have residual health issues that I'm dealing with from the chronic stress. But I think people get into this mode of more. I'm going to call it the mode of more. Their goal is to do more. And so when we do consulting, we're talking about, well, what do you want? What's your life going to be like? What do how much time do you want to spend with your grandkids? How much time what are you looking for really? And then let's build a practice around that. We tend to get into our identity as being the orthodontist or the dentist, when in fact that's only a piece of you. And it can become the overriding piece if you let it. It's hard to do on your own. It really is. And I had a coach that was helping me. Getting out of the practice helped me. I don't think you have to do that. You don't have to be out of the practice to do it. But I do think you probably need help to see possibilities that you don't see because you're so in the middle of it's like we're taught to put our nose down and just bowl through whatever obstacles we have. And we don't always stop and look and say, wow, this is the wrong forest. I'm cutting down trees, but this is the wrong forest.
Got it. And Luke, can you tell us who you sold to and why you chose to sell to them?
I sold to the Shulman Group, and I was one of the first 2 practices that they got. I sold to them because I had a long-term relationship with the Shulman Group. It's an incredible study club. Great friends, top to bottom, and I thought, okay, this would be a good. We have a relationship. We can make this work.
Got it. So that's why you sold to them. And can you give us like kind of a overview of, okay, you sold. After you sold, did you have to stay? Did you want to stay? How long did you stay in that relationship for and working with them? And how did that process go? How was the transition process, right? A lot of dentists and specialists are like, man, I'm so concerned that as soon as I sell, everything's going to change, even though they told me nothing's going to change. Or the changes, I don't know what they are going to be. Can you give us a peek into what it was like going through that transition process?
To a large extent, it was difficult for me. Remember, I'd started this thing from scratch. I'd nurtured it. I'd been to all the CE. I incorporated all these systems, and some of those systems had price tags associated with them. And so if you come in without understanding why, then it makes sense. Get rid of this expensive whatever it is, okay? The problem is by getting rid of it, there were other things that happened. If we got rid of remote monitoring, people aren't going to come from an hour away every other, 6 weeks. It was fine every 12 weeks. It wasn't so fine, So that's just one example. It was as though they were taking this really special practice and trying to make it like a lot of other practices, which was fine if you're in Atlanta, but didn't work as well in Marshall, Michigan.
Okay, got it. So essentially there was some processes that were specific to your practice that they tried to cookie cutter, and it essentially made it difficult.
I understand why. I would have loved to have had that conversation, say, there's a consequence to doing that. Are you sure that's what you wanted to do? So.
Got it. Now, after the practice sale itself, how were you in the practice? Were you going 2 times per week still, or 1 per week? Was there another orthodontist working with you? How did that transition go? Did they come in and get their own office manager? What was the transition like?
I had a really, really strong office manager, so they didn't have to get a new office manager. I think contractually we were at 2 years, which is short for an ortho practice. Typically it's 5. But they knew my wife was moving to Florida and I wanted to go with her. And, so, okay, I can commute for a while. And so that's kind of what I did, as I commuted back and forth to Florida. and took care of patients. I think we worked it out. It wasn't always 2 days a week. Sometimes it was 4 one week and none the next, or, we'd work out the schedule as time went by. And then they brought in an orthodontist who was working part-time somewhere else. She had her own practice over near Detroit. The idea was we were going to work together and transition, and we did some of that. There was a little bit of a clash of philosophy, but that makes sense. And I don't know where it came from. I don't know if it was the orthodontist and I thought differently, or if she was being told, no, we're going to make this kind of a practice. I wasn't privy to those conversations, but I was trying to fit my chartreuse, square into a round hole, and it wasn't very long. I said, it sounds like you guys have this solved. I'll move on, and you can do your thing. So,
yep, makes sense. What were the benefits to having them come in, and what were the challenges?
I think the benefits to a DSO are really, first off, orthodontists and dentists. We have to be pretty good in high school to get in dental school. You have to be pretty good in dental school to get into ortho school. I mean, you start to think you're pretty smart. And you're probably the smartest guy. I was the smartest guy in my office about moving teeth. But I wasn't the smartest about business. I had learned that on my own. Whereas in a DSO, you've got somebody who that's what they did. They worked on business. For them to talk to each other and come up with another way to do things would be perfect. For us, as we talked about, that didn't really happen very much. But I think the big benefit would be to have the management, the marketing. The management stuff you can make over the whole organization, so you get, economies of scale. I don't know that the marketing should be that way. I think the marketing should be unique to each practice. Honestly, unless you're a known name, unless you're Invisalign and you're willing to spend $50 million on advertising every year, it ought to be about what's unique about this practice in this area.
Got it. And when they took over your marketing, did you see an influx of patients or a little bit less of patients, the wrong patients? How did that work?
We didn't see an increase. And initially, I don't think we saw a decrease. It takes a while for people to realize, okay, it's different. Toward the end of the time I was there, we were definitely seeing a decrease. And after I left, they saw a tremendous decrease.
Got it. And whenever you were going through the process of looking to find a buyer to sell to, did you have multiple buyers that were looking and you bid it up the highest and decided to go with one, or did you just stick with one buyer from the very beginning?
I tried to shop it around. It's very difficult as a private orthodontist to do that. So I did shop it around to different DSOs. I did put feelers out with friends, but I didn't want to advertise that my practice was for sale, because now all the patients get to hear that, especially if I was the only orthodontist in Marshall, Michigan. So all I have to do is say, there's an orthodontic practice in Marshall, Michigan, and I'm done, right?
Right.
So I really focused on the DSOs because I could do that confidentially. I did talk to several individuals. Most of the DSOs were not as interested, and it was largely, I believe, because they've got to find somebody who wants to live in Marshall, Michigan 2 days a week and then go somewhere else 2 days a week. That was the real issue. What actually ended up happening was the Shulman Group then sold to a different DSO. That DSO found my competitor in Battle Creek and made it his practice. So now he's got a monopoly on the whole area.
Got it. So let me ask you this. Is there it sounds like you had a successful sale of your practice, but it sounds like there are things that you would have did differently. I hear a lot of hesitation and thinking about things, and it's like, man, things could have went a different direction. Can you explain things that you wish you would have did differently prior to the sale?
Oh man, I would have done a whole bunch of things differently.
And that's what people want to hear.
Yeah, I mean, as an orthodontist, I would have planned out EBITDA better. I would have understood it better.
Okay.
I know there's the book by Matt Ornstein that does a great job of explaining that. And I know but I mean, if you can get a copy of the book, man, it'll blow you away on the information in just a little tiny read. Had I known that, I would have looked at some of the expenses that we were running and thought, is this really necessary, or is this to satisfy Lou's quest for knowledge? I would have probably simplified some things along the way so that they were more standard. I had done a lot of that already, but I would have done more of that. And I would have made it more about the practice and less about me.
Tell me more about that, more about the practice and less about you.
Well, if it's a practice that's built around an individual.
Okay, got it.
And you go to sell it, that individual's got to be there for you to get the goodwill associated with the practice. Whereas if the systems were set up in such a way, if we could have had a transition period, that would have been great. In our case, I think they want to do 6 months of due diligence. And at the end of the 6 months, they weren't quite done with their due diligence. I would have read the contract again if I was in retrospect, because I had a private guy come and approach me right then. And I thought, I can't sell to you because I'm already under LOI on this guy. But the problem was I wasn't, because the 6 months had gone up. I could have talked to him, and he would have been a great one. He would have probably come in and appreciated my guidance and appreciated, he would have taken it and taken it to the next level. It would have been a smoother transition. I wasn't as aware of what my options were.
So know your contract is the first thing you would recommend.
Know your contract and negotiate it. Because honestly, I negotiated the 2 years, and then they said, okay, it's a 2-year contract. And then they had a little clause in there that, if we need to, we can let you go within 60 days. I said, wait a sec, then it's no longer a 2-year contract. And they said, well, we need to have that flexibility. I said, okay, well, then I want that too. Okay, and they relented and gave it to me, which was a blessing to me, because I could say, you know what, I'm out, okay? And I always, you know me well enough, we've been friends long enough, I'm not going to leave somebody in the lurch. I worked there for a long time till they found somebody beyond the 60 days. But negotiate your contract. Everything is negotiable, right, if you have the right person. And they're not going to give you everything, don't get me wrong. But you got at least ask the question and put it in the way that you want it to be. And then know it cold. Know what your options are. Know what the rules are.
What was the reaction that you got from your team when you went to sell? And how did you go about that? There's a lot of dentists that are like, man, I can't tell my team until it's a done deal or it's almost a done deal. Some say, we're not going to say anything until the signature hits. Some say I'm going to tell them 6 months in advance. How did your team react? What was that like? I know that was hard for you. That's my assumption. It was hard for you. Can you tell us how that went and what you'd recommend, what you did, how it went, and then what would you recommend for other dentists?
Well, part of the LOI was don't tell them. So I was not allowed to tell them by contract. And as a result, now I think they had some idea that something was going on, But oh my God, it is so much better to tell them what exactly is going on than to have them make stuff up.
in their
Oh,
head. Yeah.
oh, good Lord. They knew something was going on because of just all the interactions and the phone calls and some guys visiting and so on. By and large, I'm a change agent. I don't mind change. I enjoy change. I like to see change. Most of my team was not wired that way, so this was quite a shock. And you develop relationships with them. You have to find that balance between, yeah, this is a business and they work for the business and that's what they do, and you really care about people, right? And to have to blindside them wasn't very comfortable for me. It would have been better in retrospect if I had said, all right, I'm looking at selling this thing. Here's what we need to do. We need to increase the EBITDA. We need to be efficient on this and this and this. We've got to build this up, and we've got to make it so that you run it so that when a new orthodontist comes in here, you tell them what to do. Okay? And then you have to get the ego of the orthodontist out of the way. Because again, we all think we're the smartest guy in the room, and we're not. Okay? I hired for friendly. I hired for doing small talk. That's not my thing. Okay? I hire for that. But it was a great team. And just like in football, you're not going to put a running back on the line. You're not going to do it. Okay? They got to run behind the lineman. They're specialized positions, but it's the whole sum that makes it work.
Got it. How about your patients? You're working on your patients and they're used to you and they want to maybe see you throughout, etc. How is that? Like, what's it? Can you tell our listeners how did your patients take it?
Well, initially it wasn't any big deal because I was still working there. From their standpoint, oh yeah, there's a name change, who cares? But as it got to the point where I was getting ready to leave, from my standpoint, personally, it was a real upper. I had so many people hugging me and said, man, you are going to be so missed. We just love you, the way you take care of us. From the practice standpoint, it wasn't me. And in fairness, they had to set up systems to deal with stuff that I would just make a decision about. And I'm kind of a cream puff. So, if it was, hey, the kid didn't wear his retainers, all right, let's give him another set. But this is the last time we're doing it for free. Whereas they might charge for them. I don't know if that was one of them, but you get my idea. There were things that they were setting up that they have to do for their whole organization. I just did whatever I thought was right at the time. So
Makes sense. So, you were able to sell your practice, and you worked in it for how long after?
Year and a half.
Okay. And that opened up another opportunity for you for your career. Okay. That selling of your practice is kind of like, okay, now there's light, free world. What do you do? What have you did, in the past year and a half-ish since you have been out? What have you did? What did it give you free time to do?
We had been looking at, Egghead Orthodontist was started in 2006 as an educational arm to what we were already doing. So I was teaching people how to use lasers. And in orthodontics in 2006, I was a unicorn. There were maybe 3 of us doing that routinely. And so I was able to spend more time on figuring out how to explain complicated procedures like that and put them into simplification patterns so that somebody could go in and do it very easily. I was able to do some writing that I hadn't been able to do. I wanted to be a consultant, and I thought, I don't know that I have the chops. So I have a coach, and we spent some time talking about it. I have backstage with people that I'm talking through this with. I'm blessed with a lot of opportunities. Actually, I'm blessed with too many opportunities. I have to focus down into which ones. So I've been I mean, on the dental side, or on the orthodontic side, consulting with orthodontists. I mean, and it's been really good. We've done some great things. Part of the problem is orthodontists tend to think they got it all handled. Okay. With dentists, there hasn't been as much inroads. I don't think dentists understand as much the hidden costs they have with doing orthodontic treatment. Just the fact, I mean, every appointment should be about $1,000. I can show the math. So if you're going to do a refinement, you just increased your overhead $2,000 for every refinement. And think about a patient with 7 refinements, right? Now, you're not paying that money. It's a free refinement. But it's not free in terms of time. And if you finish that other case, you could start a new one. And I'm thinking, from my standpoint, I want to collaborate. I don't want to teach dentists how to do it because there's too many things in my head that I can't teach in a couple hours here and there. I want them to borrow my brain, rent the brain, so that I'm helping them now. Don't do the tough ones, do the easy ones, and it's not just spacing. Or personally, it's not just spacing, So I want to do that. So these are the things that I do, and I'm writing a chapter on transverse and all that stuff. So
Okay, that's awesome. Lou, if there's one last thing that you were to leave the dentist or the specialist with that's thinking about selling, one last piece of advice, what would that last piece be?
One piece, plan ahead, way ahead. If you can plan 3 years ahead, you say, hey, my horizon's starting to appear. Plan that far ahead. Know what EBITDA means. Get all that down, and then think, how am I going to increase that? In general dentistry, you can do that in a lot of different ways. I mean, probably one of the simpler ones is do ortho, because you can delegate most of that, especially if you're collaborating. You can delegate most of the thinking, and you can delegate most of the delegation, most of the deployment. I mean, that's almost a no-brainer. But you can do so many things to do like quadrant dentistry instead of individual fillings. There's a million things you can do on the dental end that will increase your EBITDA.
Got it. But plan ahead is the biggest thing. Awesome. Lou, for the people who are interested in picking your ortho head more, your egg head, right?
Yeah, my egg head, yeah.
Yeah, right. And people are interested in picking your brain, ultimately. What's the best way to get in touch with you?
It's probably email. It's DRLOU, Dr. Lou, at eggheadortho.com.
Okay. Awesome.
Egghead Ortho.
There you go. I don't know if you were putting your head in the screen or your logo, but we like the
my
both.
logo, oh, yeah, you know on my head. Nobody wants to see that.
That's awesome. Well, Lou, thank you so much. And for the listeners that are curious, how was it selling to a group? And by the way, the group that you sold to was two locations growing on their third, which is good to know. It wasn't a massive group, but it was a group that was starting. But I'm sure a lot of people got a lot of info out of this, and I'd be shocked if you didn't hear from multiple people from this podcast about your transition or about potentially your coaching and consulting services. So well, thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we will see you the next episode.
Thank you.